Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. I read story after story about cheating wives and even cheating husbands. I know that all people are different and react differently to their spouse cheating on them. In most relationships, I would expect a husband to lose his temper and do something if he finds a man in bed with his woman. I've just read a few stories, and in each of them, the husband comes home early and finds an unfamiliar car in the driveway. In most of them, he walks quietly around his own house and hears sounds coming from his master bedroom. He goes to the door, which is usually ajar so that he can look inside the room. Now, please understand that I am not attacking any writers or authors. I'm talking to these dumb fucking wimps who are boyfriends and husbands. They watch their wives being used, and they feel bad. They are in a staggering situation, not knowing what to do, so they slowly leave the room, sneak back out of their own house, and go to the bar to reflect a little more while drinking a pint of Jim Beam. Later, they return home and act as if nothing happened, and later they try to plan some kind of revenge. Is that what real men do? I say, bullshit for you cuckolding weaklings. You mellifluous bastards who let other men use your wife while you stand by and watch. You don't want to ruin your sweet little marriage, and you might have to face the truth. In some cases, you are actually standing there watching your so-called spouse being used. To all of you so-called caring husbands and boyfriends, I say, fuck you. It happened to me, and I'll tell you what I did. Mandy and I have been married for 11 years. We had 2 children, Trevor, who was 10 years old, and Jasmine, who was 8. I always thought we had a good marriage. As in most marriages, we made love all the time in the early years. We had a pretty intense personal life. Like many young people, we were deeply in debt. It was our own fault. We wanted the same things our parents have, but we wanted it now. It took our parents 30 years to pack their belongings. It wasn't just that Mandy was spending money. I also wanted new toys, all new household appliances, and a big screen TV, to name just a few of them. Anyway, we're in debt. I already worked at the factory 6 days a week. We received profit-sharing checks, but because of the economy, they seem to have become much smaller. Anyway, Mandy said she could go to work. I felt guilty that I couldn't support my family, but it was the only way to get rid of our debt. Mandy got a job at one of the local department stores. She didn't earn much, but she could work according to the child's schedule. Of course, this meant that I didn't see her very often, at least not as often as I would like. The days when we made love were less frequent and passed far from each other. Mandy said that because of the kids and work, she just wasn't in the mood. I could understand that. There were days when I wasn't ready for it either. We used to always argue about money, but now it was taking care of the house. She told me that I needed to do more. She was probably right, and I tried. But then it turned out that I couldn't do everything well enough, or didn't do it the way she wanted. You have to understand that I didn't mind doing something, but if I had to do it, it would be my way. I started going to the bar while she was working. I was just angry and tired of being alone. The kids always went to their grandparents because Mandy's parents had a pool. We couldn't afford it. I met a few women in a bar, but I didn't do anything, just talk to them. I actually treated them to a few drinks. Mandy realized that I was hanging out at the bar. She was really angry and told me that if I was going to use some cheater, she could do the same. I told her it wasn't true, and whoever told her I was cheating on her was a fucking liar. She didn't tell me who it was. She just went to bed and locked herself away from me. I was thinking about breaking down the door, but then I'd have to fix it. I figured she'd get over it, so I slept on the couch. We didn't get along at all then. We argued about all sorts of trifles. We didn't talk anymore. We both threatened each other with divorce over nothing. The children spent more and more time with Mandy's parents. I think it was unpleasant for them to see us arguing, and it hurt them too. On Friday, I told Mandy that I was taking Saturday off and going fishing. I needed to collect my thoughts. Mandy said, "We need money, and you're taking the day off. What the hell is wrong with you?" That was another argument. Mandy accused me of taking a girl from the bar with me. I didn't know where she got this information from, but she didn't tell me. This was not true, although I admit that in the last few weeks one of them continued to molest me. I liked the attention, but I didn't do anything with her. I did talk to her quite obscenely, but to be honest, I never touched her. On Saturday, I got up, took my fishing gear, and went for a walk. I was gone for about 4 hours when, I think, I finally came to my senses. Sometimes you need to be alone in the wilderness to clear your mind. This is what fishing has done for me. I realized how stupid Mandy and I were. Instead of talking with a clear head, we both argued, and neither of us gave in an inch. I decided to go home so that the two of us could sit down like adults and work on our problems. When I got home, there was a strange car parked in the driveway of my house. I immediately thought about these fucking stories and how the weaklings reacted. I quietly entered my house and listened for any sounds. I heard Mandy say, "Ralph, this is wrong, even if Clyde is cheating on me." "Oh, my God, Clyde. What are you doing at home?" "It's not what you think," Mandy said. God, what a stupid phrase. We were both smarter than that. I grabbed Ralph's arm and pulled him off the couch. I hit him with the right cross to the jaw. I think I may have dislocated his jaw. I threw it across the living room, knocking over the table and the lamp. I jumped on him and hit him over and over again. I got up and kicked him in the balls. All this time, Mandy was screaming and crying, demanding that I stop. I picked up the bleeding, almost lifeless piece of shit and threw it out the door onto my lawn. "You fucking cheater, get the fuck out of my house." I grabbed her and she screamed as I threw her out the front door. I slammed the door and locked it. I heard Mandy yelling outside for me to let her in. She needed to talk to me and call an ambulance for Ralph. I didn't do either, but about 5 minutes later a patrol car and an ambulance arrived. They told me to open the door, otherwise they would break it down. I opened it and they burst in. They told me to lie face down on the floor with my legs spread. One officer put his knee in my back and handcuffed me. An ambulance was already taking Ralph unconscious to the hospital. Mandy tidied up her clothes. They talked to Mandy and took her statement. I didn't say a word. They read me my rights and I refused to speak. They put me in a patrol car and took me to jail. Mandy called the prison and even went there. I told the officers running the place that I didn't want to talk to her. It was one of the few rights I had left. The officer, a nice guy named Joe, came up to me in the detention cell to talk to me. "Off the record, Clyde. What the hell happened?" "Connection or lack thereof," I replied. "My wife was getting ready to make love to a guy on my couch. I'm not a fucking wimp, so I took matters into my own hands." "Have you heard her side of the story, Clyde?" he asked. "Joe, let me explain it very simply. No one forced her. She was going to do it of her own free will. What kind of man would I be if I took shit like that? I did what I had to do. Now I think I'm going to have to pay for it," I said. I refused to even try to post bail. I told them that I wasn't going to waste money that could be useful to my family, so I could just go home in this situation. They were going to hire me one of those lawyers that the state provides. It suited me fine. He'll be gone for at least a day or so. Anyway, I needed time to cool down. Joe returned with a letter from Mandy. I immediately told him that I didn't even want to read it. When I finally saw my lawyer, he told me that I was in a lot of trouble. He wanted me to plead insanity. I laughed and told him that I knew exactly what I was doing, and if that asshole approached Mandy again, he would get a repeat performance. Did I really ask if I killed that bastard? "Damn close," my lawyer said. "Broken jaw, 2 ribs, 2 black eyes, and God knows what else." The police couldn't even accept his statement about what happened. He was unable to speak. "All they have is your wife's statement right now. I'm going to visit her myself tomorrow. Would you like me to say something to her?" "Yes, I do. Tell her that now she's free to make love to whomever she wants, and I want a divorce," I said. I just became a very stubborn jerk. You had to be a hard-headed person in prison. I haven't even talked to Mandy. I refused to meet her. I did receive several messages from my children saying that they missed me and wanted me to come home. As if I could just say, "Okay, I think I'll go home tonight." 2 months have passed since the beating, and my trial was about to begin. At least, something like a pre-trial trial. The only witnesses were Mandy and this guy Ralph, who I found out worked at the same place as Mandy. I was sitting in the courtroom when they wheeled Ralph in a wheelchair. I think he broke his leg when I threw him out the door. His jaw was still bandaged, but the bruises had almost healed. My lawyer whispered to me that they had to surgically remove his testicles. They were rammed too far into his scrotum. He couldn't have children. He was married, but his wife divorced him because of this fiasco. He wrote most of his statements because he was difficult to understand because of the brace on his jaw. I looked back at the courtroom door and saw Mandy standing there. I felt anger and pain when I saw her. She was forced to appear at the hearing as a reluctant witness. They said she didn't have to testify against me, but she had to give her testimony about what happened. Well, I guess I had to hear it after all. Ralph was called first. He basically said or wrote that Mandy invited him to visit, and they got intimate when I burst into the room and started beating him before he could even defend himself. He said that he and Mandy were two consenting adults. He told the judge that I had never given anyone a chance to explain anything. I just brutally attacked him. I wanted to get up and slap him again. I would have done so if I thought I could get closer to him. Mandy gave him a very mean look and cried when she looked at me. Mandy was called to testify. She told the judge that she worked with Ralph. He molested her quite often, and she always rejected his advances. He recently told her that her husband was cheating on her. She refused to believe it, and even told Ralph that she had talked to me about it. Now I understood where I had seen Ralph before. He was hanging around Jake's bar, where I was drinking. He always kept his distance and never talked to me. That bastard took pictures to use against me. Then Mandy said, I was completely shocked after I found out that Clyde was cheating on me. Ralph told me that I should get even with him and do the same thing he did. I was confused. I love Clyde, but when we get angry, we do stupid things. I told Ralph about how Clyde went fishing, and he told me that he overheard Clyde inviting a cheating bar girl to go with him. It hurt me, and maybe I even wanted to get even. I don't know. I was so embarrassed. That terrible Saturday, Clyde left and didn't even kiss me goodbye. The children got up and asked to visit my mother for a day. It left me alone in the house thinking about what Clyde was doing. Then Ralph showed up at my door. I asked him what he was doing there, and he told me that he thought I could use some company because my husband was cheating on me. He set us up. I really hope the judge noticed that. Of course, Mandy let him in, and seeing him in a wheelchair wouldn't have helped me much. Mandy continued. Ralph came in and I poured him a cup of coffee. We started talking about what Clyde was probably doing right now, and Ralph started flirting with me. I know I screamed at Clyde to stop, but he was like crazy. He threw Ralph out the door, and then called me a cheater and a slut and pushed me out too. A few minutes later, the police arrived with an ambulance. Mandy testified in court in tears. I tried to contact Clyde and talk to him, but he refused to see me. I was so stupid, so stupid. She came down from the podium and looked at me in tears. I had such mixed emotions. According to her, they had never done this before, and there was a good chance that she would not have gone for it. I knew she was in pain, but there was nothing I could do but watch. This jerk ruined our lives. When I made my statement, I made the mistake of saying that I would do it again. At the end of the whole process, I was charged with assault and battery. The judge said that despite the fact that it happened in my house, Ralph was considered a guest. I could have asked him to leave, but legally I couldn't beat him half to death. The judge gave me 4 years. Mandy left the courtroom in tears. I've never talked to her. One day, sitting in my cell, I decided to write to her. I had something to say, and I had to take it off myself. Dear Mandy, I really love you and have always loved you. I've never cheated on you. If you go to the bar and ask Sue, I'm sure she'll tell you the truth. I'll ask the lawyer to send you the divorce papers. You're too beautiful a woman to be alone. We made some serious mistakes that I will always regret. If we had communicated with each other more, this might not have happened. I wish I should, but now it's too late. Tell Trevor and Jasmine that I love them. It's a pity that their father is a criminal. I just couldn't stand by and let this happen. I'm not that kind of person. My only regret right now is that you didn't believe me and decided to take revenge instead of talking to me. I hope you can find someone. Please forget about me and get on with your life. You should get the divorce papers any day now. Always loving you, Clyde. I sent the divorce papers and gave all our possessions to Mandy. Where I lived now, I didn't need anything. I was even given food and underwear. All I could do now was waste my time. I didn't have any real skills other than working as a laborer, so I started trying to get better by signing up for rehabilitation programs. At least when I get out, I might be able to find a job. I was included in the welding program. I did some welding at my old job, but now I could become a master welder and maybe build a future when I get out. Every night I thought about my family, about my children left without a father, and about Mandy living without me. Life really sucked. It took about 2 months, and the cell attendant said that I had a visitor. I figured it was a lawyer with my divorce papers. There were two types of visitor centers in this prison. Those with glass between them, where you talk on the phone, and others where you sit at a table and talk face to face. There was a minimal amount of touching in this visiting area. This was the one I was sent to. Mandy was waiting for me at the table. She raised her eyes, looked at me, and began to cry.
Mandy.
What brings you here? I asked. I don't want a divorce. I'll wait for you as long as it takes. I don't need anyone but you. I made a terrible mistake not believing you. It will never happen again. I know you may not believe me, but I don't think I would have gone any further than I did. I felt so guilty. I was almost glad when you came in. Now our lives are a mess because of what we both did. I take half the blame for being so stupid for not trusting you. I actually dated this woman, Sue, and she told me that she really cared about you and tried to be affectionate, but you told her that you were happily married and would not cheat on me. I told her about Ralph and the photos, and she got really angry. In fact, she said she had to kill that bastard. How are the children? Are they all right? I asked. They are doing as well as could be expected. I couldn't afford this house, and we're selling it. We moved in with Mom and Dad for a while until we can get back on our feet. We're closing the house next week. I've put all our furniture and your personal belongings in storage. When you get out, we can start all over again. She started crying. I'm so sorry. I miss you so much. I can't live without you. I love you, Clyde. I miss you too, but you need to get on with your life. I can't expect you to wait for me for another 3 years or so, I replied. I told you I'm not getting a divorce. I'm waiting for you. If you want to get divorced when you get out, then I'll sign the papers, but not before, she replied. We talked a little more, and then I asked the officer for permission to kiss her goodbye. She kissed me very gently, and tears flowed down her face. She told me that she would come there every month to see me. I told her not to come every month. It would hurt too much every time she left. She agreed to come in about once every 3 months. Prison life continued. About once a month, I received letters from my children in which they told me what they were doing, and sometimes they sent me a photo. I have one photo of them with their smiling mother. It was the one I hung on the wall of my cell. I have mastered welding techniques quite successfully. The instructor told me that he would give me a job recommendation when I get out. Mandy came to see me every 3 months. She said everything was fine. She changed jobs and worked at another department store, where she was a department manager with a slightly higher salary. Her parents allowed her to save most of the money so that she could eventually get back on her feet. I asked her what her parents thought of me, a criminal, now. Mom and Dad love you, Clyde. They know that you did it because of your short temper. They were really mad at me for being so stupid. They told me that I was losing a good husband because of a lack of communication. In fact, when the divorce papers came and they saw them, they asked me what I was going to do. When I tore them up in front of their eyes, they smiled. Another 6 months passed, and I was told that I had another visitor. They wanted to see me at the glass case, not at the tables. I had no idea who might want to see me. I went to the window. Ralph was there, holding the phone. What do you want? I asked. I just thought I should let you know that I'm going to see this through, he said. What the hell are you talking about, asshole? I said. This is what I intended to do, and now I'm going to finish this job. You know we're dating, don't you? He said. You lying bastard. When I get out of here, I'm going to finish this job. I'm going to nail your fucking ass. I was really angry, but there was nothing I could do. Maybe I'll even take pictures of how I'm using your wife and send them to you. You can hang them in your cell, he laughed. I'll find you and kill you, I said. He laughed. I won't be here by then. See you later, Clyde. He hung up and left. Damn it. Everything was going pretty well, and now that bastard is back. I was pretty sure Mandy wasn't dating him, but I needed to call her and warn her. I finally got to the phone. I could only call for a fee. I hope they will accept it. Trevor picked up the phone and answered yes to the call. Dad. Hi, Dad. How are you? Boy, how nice to hear your voice. I really miss you, Dad. I miss you too, Trevor, but I have to talk to my mom right now. It only takes me a few minutes to make each call. Is she there? He replied, Yes, she's here. Mom, Dad needs you on the phone. I heard her scream. What? In the background. Clyde, is that you? What's the matter, honey? What is it? She asked. She knew I wouldn't have called if it wasn't urgent. Have you talked to Ralph lately? I asked. No, of course not. I can't stand that bastard after what he did to us. What's the matter, Clyde? What is it? She asked. He showed up here a while ago and said you two were dating. That's a lie, Clyde, a damn lie. You have to believe me, she said. I really believe you, Mandy, but I know he's coming for you, somehow. I need you to protect yourself and watch this bastard. I do not know what to do next, but I warn you. He's going to try to get even by using you, I said. I'd rather die than let that jerk near me. Honey, I'll be fine. You taught me how to take care of myself. It's useless to call the police because they don't react until something happens. Just be careful. I have to hang up now. I love you, Mandy. That was all I could do. I didn't want to make a fuss anymore without proof. I haven't slept well for several days. About a week later, another customer sat down at my tables. Clyde, I'm Lieutenant Abrams, and this is Officer Ryan. We're from the sheriff's office. Well, Lieutenant, what do you want from me? I asked. About 3 days ago, as far as we could tell, Ralph Medley was shot dead outside the bar you were visiting. Is there anything you can tell us about this? Do you also have a gun? Lieutenant, I've been here for 2.5 years because of this jerk. I could hardly shoot him from here, and no, I don't have a gun. Mandy wouldn't let a gun into the house. According to the visitor log, he was here last week. What did he want? He came to laugh at me, saying that I was locked up and he was free as a bird. I think it was done to put salt on the wounds, so to speak, I replied. Do you have any idea who might have a grudge against him? He asked. Listen, guys, I don't give a damn about this flying dick. He's dead, good riddance to the miserable scum. Does it matter to me? Hell no. Whoever the hell did it, I hope they get away with it. Although I heard that his ex wasn't too happy with him, I replied. What about your wife? What's her name? Mandy? Maybe she's interested in seeing him dead, the lieutenant said. Mandy doesn't have the temperament to do something so disgusting. Damn, she wanted me to call an ambulance when I beat the shit out of him. You're talking to the wrong person if you're watching Mandy. She has 2 children whom she has to support on her income, and now she lives with her parents. She doesn't have time to wipe her ass, let alone shoot someone. I laughed. Well, Clyde, thank you at least for talking to us, he said. Hey, were you going to tell me what you know about the shooting? Damn it, officer. I've told you everything I know. Fair enough. Ralph walked into Jake's bar around 7 o'clock. He was sitting around drinking and met a beautifully dressed blonde at the door. She never went inside, so the people in the bar couldn't get a good look at her face. They rounded the parking lot, and the next thing the visitors heard were shots, 2 of them. By the time they got outside, Ralph was dead from 2 Luger shots to the face. The woman disappeared. We think it could have been her, but we don't have any evidence of that, other than that she must have been the last person with him before he was shot. I'm sorry, I can't help you, but he probably got what he deserved, I said. I wanted to call Mandy and tell her that she had nothing to worry about anymore. I was afraid that someone might listen to my phone call, so I just kept quiet. The shooting was reported in the newspapers, and it said they had no real suspects. They did mention my name since I beat the crap out of him, but they knew where I was at the time. Next week it was time for Mandy to visit me again. I was so happy to see her. She asked me if I had heard of Ralph. I told her that the police had come and talked to me. She told me that they also talked to her. She told them that depending on the exact time of day, she was working or returning home from work. Her parents vouched for the time of her arrival. I asked her if they had asked if we had guns. Yes, they did ask me. I told them I didn't allow guns in the house, just like you told me to tell people if they ever asked when you bought one a few years ago. Where's my Luger? The one we bought a few years ago from that crazy street vendor? I asked. Probably in the warehouse with the rest of your stuff, she replied. The main thing is that you're safe. That's all that matters. Being in this prison has given me a lot of time to think. Do you think when I get out, we can put all this behind us and start over? I asked. She smiled at me and said, I know we can. No more secrets and much more communication. I love you, Clyde. I've always done it, and always will do it. A couple of months later, I was called to the warden's office. He told me I'd be off early. This will happen in about 2 weeks. I couldn't be happier. I called Mandy. Darling, can you come and pick me up in about 2 weeks? I asked. You mean come and see you? Yes, I can, she replied. No, not to come to see me, but to come and pick me up. I'm being released early, I smiled. I heard Mandy start crying. Oh my God. Oh my God. When? What day is it? At what time? Oh my God, Clyde. I'm so happy. She was still crying. 2 weeks later, I was released. Mandy came and picked me up. She had another car. She said the old one was out of order. She looked beautiful when she came up to me and kissed me. She was crying, and there were tears in my eyes. We headed to her parents' house, and they had a sign saying, with an exit, "Welcome home, Dad." The children must have done it. My children looked so grown up when I hugged and kissed them. Apart from their photos, I haven't seen them in 3 years. My mother-in-law came over and hugged me, and I shook hands with my father-in-law. I carried my suitcase into the house and was greeted by several of our old friends. I wouldn't let Mandy go far away from me. Honey, where should I sleep? I asked Mandy. In our bed, silly. We moved her downstairs a couple of days ago so that you and I could have some privacy. It was Dad's idea, but you and I are going to a motel tonight. I've booked a room. I have 3 years of pent-up love that I've been saving for you. God, I've missed you so much, she said. After everyone had almost left the party and I said goodnight to my kids, Mandy said we'd see everyone tomorrow. It was pretty funny when you think about it. Everyone knew where we were going and what we were going to do. I looked into our wardrobe to see if I had any clothes there. I opened one drawer and there was a blonde wig. Mandy came in and saw me looking at it. I bought it and put it on once. I think I look better as a brunette, she smiled. She pointed to a couple of drawers where she had put some of my clothes. I got a fresh change of clothes and one more change to take with me to the motel. We headed for the exit and talked about our future. We both agreed that if either of us had a problem, we would come face to face with it. No more secrets and lots of communication. When we got to the motel, we decided to have a drink together. She was sitting at a table and looked pretty, and I went over to get us a drink. When I turned around, there was a guy sitting next to Mandy. I could hear their conversation from where I was waiting for our drinks. Hi, baby. Are you all alone here? He asked. Please go away. I am married and waiting for my husband to return. I'm asking you nicely, but he won't do it, Mandy said. Damn, baby. Why would I be afraid of your old man? He asked. Clyde, honey, please come here, she said. The man looked at me and said, I'm sorry, lady and sir. I made a mistake. I mistook you for someone else, and ran out the front door. I looked at Mandy laughing. What the hell did it all mean? You'd think he'd seen a ghost, I asked. Honey, you're very well known in this part of town. You're kind of a legend. Almost every man who approached me had only to tell me that I was married to Clyde O'Brien, and they left me alone. Most people still think you're also responsible for Ralph's death, she replied. We went up to our room and Mandy asked me how I wanted to do it. She looked at me and said, Damn it, honey. I needed it as much as you did. Let me get up, go to the bathroom and clean up here so we can really love each other. I've missed you so much. She got off the bed, clasping her hands between her legs, not wanting to make a mess on the way to the bathroom. I love you so much, Clyde. I think that could be enough for the first 6 months, she said. That still leaves us with 2.5 years left, I smiled back. The epilogue. In the following weeks, I found a job as a welder in a large company. The person who hired me said that they give a lot of second chances if the employees are good workers, come on time, and do not use illegal substances. He also told me that I was highly recommended. He never said who. After a few months, we were able to rent our own house. We had a lease agreement with the right to buy. Besides, it was in the same neighborhood as Mandy's parents. We were going to be a family again. We walked up to the warehouse building, and Lieutenant Abrams and Officer Ryan were standing there with 2 other officers who had a warrant to search the warehouse building. I knew they were looking for the Luger. While they were sorting through the boxes, I tried to get Mandy's attention. At the moment, they have separated us. One officer came out with a Luger in his hand. He put it in a plastic bag and handed it to the lieutenant. The lieutenant came up to Mandy and said, I thought you didn't allow guns in your house, Mrs. O'Brien? Mandy looked at him and said that the warehouse building was not her home. Well, young lady, I advise you not to go far from home until we test this Luger. The police left, and I went to Mandy's. I thought you'd already gotten rid of that gun. God, Mandy, what are we going to do now? Do what? Mandy asked. Do what? Oh my God. You think I killed Ralph? I didn't do it, Clyde. I do not know who did it, but it was not me. I didn't think about the gun until you reminded me of it. The next day, the lieutenant came to our new house and even returned the Luger. He said the serial number had been erased, and he didn't even have a drummer. If it wasn't, it would be illegal to own it. Anyway, it was completely useless and probably hadn't been fired in years. Mandy told him to keep it or throw it away. She did not allow firearms in her house. She even wondered how it got into the warehouse building. Perhaps it belonged to one of the movers. All she knew was that it wasn't hers. After this strange situation, our lives have largely returned to normal. The main thing I've learned is to always communicate better with Mandy. She realized that it all started with the fact that she didn't trust me. I could still divorce her, but we would both lose a lot of time. Our life is as good as it was when we first got married. The only thing she knows is that I won't cheat on her, and she knows what happens if she cheats on me. It's funny when we meet up with friends. They always ask me if they can dance with Mandy. I think I'm going to be a legend in our small town for a while. About a month ago, a lieutenant called us. He said we weren't being followed anymore because of Ralph's murder. It was Sue, the woman from the bar. Ralph turned her on, and she let him use her. Obviously, she was a psychotic fool, a black widow. She made love to men and then killed them when she was done with them. The police investigated the case of cheating on his wife and went to the bar to talk to her husband. That's where the man was with Sue. They talked to her and asked her to look into her car. They found a blonde wig and a Luger in the trunk. She confessed to them that she shot Ralph and 3 other unsolved murders. They were all husbands who cheated on their wives. The first murder occurred in Atlanta, where her husband was found murdered behind a local bar. It made me think that if I had cheated on Mandy, I might be lying in an alley right now. End.